information is fairly easy to discover if you want to know. Through practices like redlining, through urban renewal practices. I don't know if there were urban renewal programs here. There were.
Yeah.
So consistently, we have used policies, we have used laws to keep money from flowing to African American neighborhoods, to indigenous areas, and at the same time, we have subsidized the building of white wealth through cheap mortgages and through policies, right? And that's the general arc. And I'm not overstating it. That is exactly what's happened, right? So what I don't know the names of the streets here, but that's the story here. That's the story in Charlotte. That's the story all across the country. And even little things like changing the name of the neighborhood are all related to that. They all get traced back to the same stream. So it's all about feeling ownership over something that doesn't rightly belong to you. Feeling like you can come in and change folks' neighborhood name. They do this in Charlotte as well, despite the fact that you're not intimately familiar with the place. And so that legacy of social control is intimately, like, this is just a new chapter in that same old story. So we had a chance to fix it at the end of the Civil War with a period in our history called Reconstruction. Reconstruction lasted for 12 years, and it was met by this movement called redemption, which was not redemptive, and it launched white supremacy campaigns. Right? We had a chance again to end it during the Civil Rights Movement, and instead we got white flight and further disinvestment from neighborhoods like Sterling. And then now we're facing the same thing again. The fracturing of our society is 100% related to our lack of healing. I'm going to preach about this in the morning, by the way, if you're going to be here. Our lack of healing, every time this finally gets exposed further, if we don't do the work now, then we're going to be doing this again. Our children and grandchildren will be doing this again. So that legacy, it didn't start with segregation, it didn't start with Jim Crow, it started well before that. And it's going to keep going until we fix it.
Thank you. Back to you, Stacy. You had this Dr. King's idea of a beloved community, and how does that inform the work of the church, particularly in Mountain View?
Appreciate Greg's insight on segregation. Just kind of a footnote. This month we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the integration of public schools in Greenville. On the 17th there'll be a commemoration and respect to all of those who are involved with that. I happen to be on the committee and was handed notes regarding integration of schools in Greenville. And the language of the mandate to integrate schools in Greenville was that all schools had to be 80% white and 20% black. Notwithstanding, there were 5 high schools, Sterling High being one of them, that were 100% black, with faculty, staff, administration, and students. And upon integration, those students and faculty and staff and administration were forced into a situation where they were the extreme minority. And some people think that that was just the way it happened, but it was by design. And so when we think about Dr. Martin Luther King's beloved community, you have to think in the context of when his life was taken. It was not for sitting at the counters at Woolworths and integrating shopping experiences. It was at the height of a movement that was beginning to shed light on economic equity, opportunities to do an equal day's work and receive an equal day's pay. So when we think about the beloved community, we have to think about the fairness of people being able to access wealth in our society. The biggest asset that most of us in this room would ever have is our home. And when you take that option away from people, or keep moving the line or the finish line or the goal line for people to have that access, or make it difficult through laws in mortgage lending, I mean, practices like redlining, you take away the opportunity for people to have access to an equitable living situation. And equity is not the same as equality, because you'll say that everybody has the same opportunity, but the truth is, no, we don't. If you're starting a lot better off than someone who's starting at zero, that is not equitable. So where Mountain View sees itself, I pastor, I get emotional when I think about my church, so forgive me. I'm sorry.
No apology.
23 years ago, I was asked to come pastor in a very, very love-rich community. There are a lot of firsts in our church. The first black person to enroll at Furman University and graduate is in our congregation. He's deceased now, but he was a part of our congregation. The first black employee for Piedmont Natural Gas was chairman of the Deacons Ministry when I came to that church. Incredible history and legacies. And I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about a rich responsibility that I have as a pastor to make sure that those voices that are now silent will echo the demand for their great-grandchildren to be able to start where they finished. That's incredible to me. So when we think about, I'm just going to do the improper thing and use the handkerchief this way. When we think about a beloved community, why can't there be a grocery store in our neighborhood? When I came to Mountain View, there were two serving that community. A Bilo on North Main and a Bilo on Buncombe. Both of those closed. And then a Publix boutique style, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like fresh fruit from Publix, but the people that lived in our neighborhood are not going to come down to Publix. So access to fresh food, address food insecurities, that's a part of the beloved community, isn't it? I mean, Brandon, I think, was talking about health, and let's start. If we could write a prescription for a stable home, I think Maslow would agree that that's the place to start. But then food, decent food in our neighborhood. There's McDonald's, there's Carolina Drive-In, there's Hardee's, there's QT, and now there's a Spinks and Dollar General. So to get to a grocery store, and I've seen this personally, people walk to Ingles at Cherrydale. So when you think about that, I think there's just some things that we take for granted. But shopping in your neighborhood and eating good quality food is a part of what I believe is what should be a beloved community, where everybody is concerned about the well-being. I grew up on Bobo Street in Inman, South Carolina. I have to shout out Bobo Street. Because on that street were my mom and dad's principals, teachers. Everybody had a garden. If you got in trouble at the end of the street, by the time you got home, your folks knew about it and you got in trouble again. If we got in trouble in school, Miss Lula Bannister's big Lincoln would be pulled in front of our house, and you knew to ditch your book bag and head for the ball field and play until the street light came on, because she was there telling on you. if I could paint a picture about love and people caring and protecting, that's what I would start with. People caring about what happens to their neighbor. And our neighbor isn't just the person who lives next door to us. It's the person who shares the air we breathe. And so we have to see people intentionally. Don't try to make me comfortable by saying I don't see color. If you say you don't see color, that means you don't see me and you don't value my experiences, and my heritage is mute to you. My heritage is important, and we have to build people's confidence in themselves and their identities and let them know that they have an opportunity to succeed in what we've called the American dream. It's not fairly placed. Greg's done a wonderful job talking about the laws that are in place and maybe things that we don't all readily recognize as the influencers of why people live in the neighborhoods that they live in and why people rent and don't own. And lots has changed, but a lot has remained the same.
We have about 2 minutes left for maybe 3 if we're on our good behavior. This housing issue is really at one end of the spectrum. We can talk about it statistically and what the definitions of it are. But at the other end of the spectrum, it's all about people's lives and the interactions they have with their neighborhoods and their communities. Let me just open it up. Does anyone, Dot, do you have something to add that you want to add? Or?
You said it 2 minutes.
All right, Dot, 2.5.